What if everything you thought you knew was wrong? What if the man standing calmly in front of cameras wasn't who he appeared to be? What if he wasn't the victim, but the architect of everything that followed? Investigators noticed something early on. The words didn't match the body language. The emotions didn't align with the situation. Within days, the truth began to surface. And it was far more calculated than anyone imagined. Autopsy reports would later reveal details no one expected. Details that shattered every version of the story Chris Watts told. Every lie collapsed under the weight of evidence. This is what you want. This is my decision. This is what I'm going to do. Don't ever confess to something you didn't do. I know, but this is my decision. This is all me. And this nightmare has to be over for everybody. People often ask why the Chris Watts case continues to resurface. Why it still haunts headlines years later. The answer is simple. His actions devastated his family and touched the hearts of parents everywhere, leaving behind a sadness that feels universal. Before we continue, let's pray for Shannan and her children, Bella, Celeste, and baby Nico. May God grant them eternal peace, surround them with His light, and welcome them into a place free from pain and fear. If you're praying with us, type Amen in the comments. I'm an investigative journalist, and I spend countless hours digging deep, chasing leads, and finding details that most people will never see. The kind of truth that's hidden, hard to find, and often buried beneath layers of lies. I need your support. Please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Every click, every subscriber, gives me the drive to keep going, to dig even deeper, and to bring you stories that most others won't touch. If there's a case or story you want me to investigate, please tell me in the comments. I promise, I will do everything I can to uncover the hidden facts for you. Please don't let these truths stay in the shadows. Also type the country where you are watching from. As humans, we try to understand the pain, the loss, and the warning signs. We revisit this case carefully, not for shock, but for answers, and to understand who Chris Watts really is today. If you value thoughtful, respectful coverage like this, please consider subscribing. Your support allows this channel to continue telling these stories with care. Chris told investigators he called Shannan 3 times, texted her 3 times, just to say, you know what's going on. After the first unanswered calls, he assumed she was busy. She had just returned from a trip to Arizona. Family, friends, everyone was probably trying to reach her. At first, he brushed it off. But when Shannan's friend showed up at the house, something shifted. That's when it registered. This isn't right. August 14th, 2018. Less than 24 hours after Shannan and the girls were reported missing. Investigators asked Chris Watts to come to the police station. They told him they needed his help, that only he could provide information to find his family. He agreed. Chris believed he could control the narrative. He was wrong. The first request was a polygraph test. Now, polygraphs aren't perfect. They're not always admissible in court, but they are a tool, measuring stress, reactions, deception. And Chris Watts failed. When asked if he knew where his family was, deception. When asked if he had harmed them, deception again. Every critical question lit up the machine. The examiner told him plainly, "You're not being truthful with me." Chris tried to explain it away. He said he was nervous, stressed, that the test had to be wrong. But investigators had seen this before. The husband who fails the polygraph. The husband with the perfect excuse. The husband hiding something. They brought him into an interrogation room. This is where psychology took over. Detectives didn't accuse him outright. They built rapport. They showed empathy. "We know you love your family. We know you want them found. Help us understand what happened." They gave him space to talk. And Chris took the bait. His first story was simple. He didn't know where Shannan and the girls were. They had an emotional conversation about separating. She left with the kids. He went to work. When he came home, everyone was gone. But detectives gently pushed back. The neighbor's surveillance footage. Shannan's car still in the driveway. Her phone. Her medication. Nothing fit. So Chris changed his story. That's what guilty people do. When one lie fails, they adjust it. They add details. They reshape the narrative. But they never tell the full truth. His second version was more detailed. Yes, he admitted to an affair. A co-worker. He claimed Shannan confronted him that morning. They argued. He told her he wanted to separate. Then came the most disturbing claim. Chris said he saw something on the baby monitor. He claimed Shannan was hurting the girls, that she was strangling Celeste in a rage. And he said that's when he snapped. That he went into the room and strangled Shannan in response. But even as he spoke, his earlier words played back on camera. I hope she's somewhere safe right now with the kids. If they're safe, they'll come back. But if they're not, that's the not knowing part. What Chris didn't realize was this. By now, investigators already knew. The story was unraveling, and the truth was closing in. Like if they're not safe. Last night, I had every light in the house on. I was hoping I'd hear the kids run through the door. Just barrel into me. But it didn't happen. And it was a traumatic night, being here alone. Let me be absolutely clear about something. This story was a lie. A calculated, disturbing lie, designed to shift blame onto the victim. In that moment, Chris Watts believed this version might save him. He thought that if he claimed he acted after witnessing harm to his daughters, he could argue temporary insanity, that he could avoid the most serious charges. The detectives listened. They didn't interrupt. They let him talk. And then, quietly, they began to poke holes in the story. If Shannan had hurt the girls, where were the injuries? If this was a sudden, emotional reaction, why dispose of the bodies? Why drive to a work site? Why go to work afterward? Why give a television interview begging for their return? Chris didn't have answers. He stammered, paused, said he panicked, that he didn't know what to do, that he was scared. Then detectives asked the question that mattered most. Where are they? And finally, Chris broke. He told them he had taken his family to an oil field owned by his company, a remote location he knew well, a place called Serva 319. He said he buried Shannan's body in a shallow grave, and his daughters. This is difficult to hear, but the truth matters. Chris admitted he placed the bodies of his 4-year-old and 3-year-old daughters into crude oil tanks. Each tank stood more than 20 feet tall. He drove them there in his truck. They were still wearing their pajamas. He forced their small bodies through 8-inch openings at the top of the tanks. When detectives asked him why he would do this to his own children, Chris claimed he thought they would be preserved in the oil. This was another lie. He didn't want them preserved. He wanted them hidden. He wanted them gone forever. On August 15th, investigators went to the Serva 319 site. They found Shannan's body in a shallow grave, covered with dirt. She was still wearing the clothes she had traveled in, a shirt that read, "Oops, we did it again," a reference to her pregnancy. Then came the most difficult task of all, draining the oil tanks. As an investigative storyteller, and as a parent, this was one of the hardest cases I've ever researched. If you appreciate careful, respectful reporting like this, please consider subscribing. Your support helps keep these stories honest and human. But here's something that still shocks people. In 2025, there are individuals pleading for Chris Watts' release. Some still claim he didn't do it. So let me ask you something, honestly. Why plead for someone who erased his own family? Why defend someone who shows no genuine remorse? Someone who destroyed lives and left permanent trauma behind? To understand why this case is not up for debate, we have to look at the medical evidence. If you're still here, thank you for staying with me through this investigation. I truly appreciate you taking the time to watch all the way through. If you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps support this work and allows me to bring you more real investigations. And if there's a case or story you'd like me to look into next, share it in the comments. Now we need to talk about the autopsy reports. This information is difficult, but it's necessary. It proves exactly what happened. And it proves Chris Watts lied. If you need to pause or skip ahead, that's okay. Shannan's body was found in a shallow grave. She had been placed there early in the morning on August 13th. The autopsy was conducted by the Weld County coroner. Cause of death: manual strangulation. Hands were used. Pressure was applied to her neck for several minutes until she could no longer breathe. There were visible marks on her neck. Bruising, petechiae in her eyes, small burst blood vessels, a clear sign of asphyxia. The medical examiner noted something else. Shannan was found face down, her arms positioned close to her sides, as if she had been placed deliberately. There were no defensive wounds on her hands, no signs of a struggle. Toxicology reports showed oxycodone in her system, a prescribed medication, not enough to cause harm. Time of death was estimated between 1 a.m. and 6 a.m. on August 13th. The evidence pointed to one conclusion. Shannan was attacked while asleep or barely awake. She never had a chance to defend herself. Now Bella and Celeste. Their bodies were recovered from crude oil storage tanks at the work site. Tanks Chris had access to. Tanks he knew how to use. Each tank had an opening only about 8 inches wide. The recovery process took hours. The oil had to be drained slowly and carefully. When the girls were finally recovered, autopsies were performed. Cause of death for both children: asphyxiation. They were deprived of oxygen. But this is what completely destroyed Chris's second story. Oil was found in their lungs, in their stomachs, in their airways, which means they were alive when they entered those tanks. And that is the truth Chris what's tried to hide. Do you understand what that means? They were breathing when they went into those tanks. They were alive. Let that sink in. Chris's story was that Shannan hurt them, that the girls were already gone. The medical evidence proved that was a lie. Those girls were alive when he put them there. The medical examiner noted additional findings. Bella had a small bruise on her jaw. Fresh. Celeste had minor abrasions. Recent. Signs of resistance. Signs of a struggle. 4 years old. 3 years old. And they fought. Toxicology reports for both girls came back clean. No drugs. No sedatives. They were conscious. Investigators confronted Chris with this evidence. And eventually, he admitted the truth. He told them what really happened. He said he killed Shannan first. Then the girls. He admitted Bella walked into the room afterward. Saw her mother. She asked him, "What's wrong with Mommy?" He told her she wasn't feeling well. Then he loaded all 3 into his truck. Drove nearly 40 minutes to the oil site. First, he buried Shannan. A shallow grave. Hastily done. Then he turned to the girls. Chris claimed Celeste didn't suffer. That it was quick. But Bella was different. Bella understood something was wrong. She cried. She asked questions. She said, "Daddy, no." And he did it anyway. One by one, he placed them into those tanks. Then he went to work. Texted his girlfriend. Acted normal. The autopsy reports destroyed his defense. They proved premeditation. They proved repeated deception. They proved the girls were alive until the very end. This evidence became the prosecution's strongest weapon. Now let me show you how investigators knew Chris was guilty, long before he confessed. It starts with the timeline. Listen to his public statements. "I miss them. I miss telling them to eat dinner. I miss cuddling with them on their little couches. Their Minnie Mouse couch, their Sophia couch. I miss turning on their rain machines, turning on the baby monitor, kissing them goodnight. I just want everybody to come home." These words sounded emotional, but investigators were focused on facts. Shannan returned home from the airport at approximately 1:50 a.m. The Ring doorbell camera captured it. Timestamp verified. She walked into the house carrying her luggage. That was the last confirmed sighting of her alive. Except for Chris. Phone records revealed something important. Chris was awake. His phone was active. In the early morning hours, he searched for information related to death. Those searches were later deleted, but investigators recovered them. Then, between approximately 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., his phone went silent. No movement. No activity. That window told investigators everything. By 5:15 a.m., Chris left for work. At around 12:10 p.m., Shannan's friend Nicole arrived at the house. Concerned. Alarmed. Shannan wasn't answering texts. Wasn't answering calls. That alone was unusual. Nicole called Chris from the doorstep. That's when he came home. Inside the house, nothing appeared disturbed. No signs of a voluntary departure. Shannan's purse. Her phone. Her medication. The kids' belongings. Everything was still there. Investigators weren't looking at a disappearance anymore. They were looking at a cover-up. And every piece of evidence pointed to one person. Chris Watts. No searches. No texts. That silence. That's the window. That's when it happened. At 5:27 a.m., the neighbor's security camera captures Chris Watts outside his home. He's loading his truck. Moving back and forth. Multiple trips from the house to the vehicle. The camera angle doesn't show exactly what he's carrying, but it shows something else. He's busy. Methodical. At 5:46 a.m., Chris drives away. The truck fully loaded. What Chris didn't account for. His work truck was GPS tracked. Company policy. Investigators later mapped every movement. Every turn. Every stop. The data showed Chris drove directly to Survey 319, a remote oil site. He arrived around 6:30 a.m. He stayed for nearly 3 hours. This was a location he was not scheduled to visit that day. His phone repeatedly pinged the cell tower at that site. When he finally left, he drove to another job location, worked a full shift, spoke to coworkers, acted completely normal. This is my decision. This is what I'm going to do. This nightmare has to be over for everybody. Those words weren't panic. They were resolve. Now let's talk about physical evidence. Police searched the house thoroughly. In the master bedroom, they found Shannan's wedding ring. Chris had mentioned it during his television interview, said it was strange she would leave without it. But she didn't leave. He removed it. They found her phone, still charging, her purse, her medication, everything she would need. There were no signs of packing, no signs of a voluntary departure. The bed sheets had been washed, fresh ones put on, but investigators found the old sheets, discarded in the trash. Those sheets told the truth. Next, they searched Chris's truck. Inside, they found traces of crude oil, the same type found at Survey 319. They found hair. DNA matched to Shannan, Bella, and Celeste. They found fibers, consistent with the discarded bed sheets. Chris's phone data revealed even more. Text messages to his girlfriend, dozens of them, on August 13th, the same day his family was missing. The same day he went on television begging for their return. He was texting another woman, sending heart emojis, looking at her photos. She asked why he seemed stressed. He said it was just work. He didn't mention his wife, or his daughters. Financial records revealed the motive. Chris and Shannan were deeply in debt. Over $400,000 owed. Mortgage behind. HOA fees unpaid. Bankruptcy was looming. They had filed once before. Chris saw an escape. A new girlfriend. No children. No financial responsibility. Divorce meant child support. Shared debt. A long road. This, in his mind, was faster. Cleaner. So where is Chris Watts today? As of 2025, Chris Watts is incarcerated at Dodge Correctional Institution in Wisconsin. He was transferred there in 2020 for safety reasons. He will never be eligible for parole. And finally, listen to the voices that matter most. The family he destroyed. My daughter Shannan and my grandchildren Bella, Celeste, and Nico were loving, caring people. They loved life. They loved being around others. They had their entire lives ahead of them. You were trusted to protect them, not to kill them. They trusted you. You took them out like trash. This case isn't complicated. The evidence is overwhelming. The timeline is airtight. The lies collapsed. And the truth remains. Chris Watts didn't lose his family. He chose to erase them. You disgust me. Shannan, Bella, Celeste, and Nico were loving, caring people. You may have taken their bodies from us, but you will never take the love they had for their family. They loved deeply, more than you will ever understand, because you don't know what love is. If you did, you would not have done this. You thought you would get away with it. I don't know how you believed that. The cameras do not lie. We saw the footage. You carried them out of the house like trash. I saw the videotape. You buried my daughter, Shannan, and my grandson Nico in a shallow grave. Then you placed Bella and Celeste into massive containers of crude oil. You heartless monster. You have to live with that image every single day of your life. And I hope you see it every time you close your eyes at night. Although, you have no heart, no feelings, no love. Let me tell you something. I will think of them every day for the rest of my life. And I will love them every day for the rest of my life. Prison is too good for you. This is hard to say, but may God have mercy on your soul. Because humanity already has its judgment. I hope you understand that your new life will never resemble the one you destroyed. Every day is hard for us. The pain never leaves. I've heard people say you're not a monster. They're wrong. You are an evil monster. Thank you. I love you, Shannan. I love you, Bella. I love you, Celeste. I love you, Nico. And one last thing. Shannan says she is super excited for justice today.